When the polls officially closed in Osun State, the raw election data immediately began flooding the central servers. This screen shows the Independent National Electoral Commission's result viewing portal. By 7:04 p.m. on election night, the system had already processed 73.03% of the state's polling unit results. 2 hours later, at 9:01 p.m., that upload percentage reached 87.48%. By 10:26 p.m., the total submitted results climbed to 3,292 out of 3,763 polling units, pushing the data pool well into its final quadrant. Right before midnight, the system crossed the 94% threshold for uploaded results, and by dawn, at exactly 6:03 a.m., the portal displayed an overwhelming 97.32% completion rate. The eventual podium declaration confirmed Adeleke Adamala Jackson Nuruddin as the winner, backed by a statewide total of 1,015,543 valid votes. But waiting for that official announcement means ignoring the math. Because the data was transmitted openly in real time, the conclusion of this race was a numerical certainty hours before anyone stood at a microphone. To reverse engineer exactly when that certainty was achieved, we used Dr. Saheed Opinemi Adebisi's AI TAP 3.0 diagnostic framework. This methodology evaluates an election's integrity across three highly specific technical vectors. The first is civic resilience, which measures the structural turnout baseline. The second is infrastructural parity, calculating the difference in data transmission speeds between urban and rural centers. The third looks for behavioral deadlocks, localized points where human interference stalls the otherwise smooth flow of digital information. Applying these three lenses to the raw Osun dataset allows us to isolate the exact moment the results crossed the threshold of mathematical insurmountability. We begin with civic resilience, finding the macro-level turnout to establish our mathematical limits. This DataFight portal snapshot clearly displays the two core numbers: 1,015,543 total votes cast against a registry of 2,256,348 voters. Dividing the votes cast by the registered voter base gives us a precise statewide turnout rate of 45.01%. That 45.01% demonstrates consistent, moderate civic engagement across the state, giving us a highly reliable cap on the average number of active voters per polling unit. Without this statewide baseline, it is impossible to calculate the maximum potential yield for trailing candidates in the outstanding districts. Next, we have to determine if that 45% participation rate was recorded and transmitted evenly, or if geographic location caused systemic lags. Look at this IREV log for Osopol, the state's dense urban core. By 1:08 a.m., its transmission velocity established a very high benchmark for the technology's capability. We compare that directly against the transmission speeds recorded in Ifadayo, an exceptionally rural, hard-to-reach area, at nearly the exact same time. The data reveals a near-perfect parity, a mere 0.04 percentage point differential in upload velocity between the urban center and the rural periphery. A 0.04 point gap means the election technology, both the local devices and the central portal, functioned with extreme uniformity, entirely indifferent to geographic constraints.
Because we can prove the hardware and network were stable statewide, any isolated severe lag in data transmission cannot be blamed on technical failure. It points directly to human intervention. That brings us to an explicit geographic anomaly within this otherwise fluid system: Ife Central. This is the breakdown for Ife Central. At 7:04 p.m., data was flowing exactly as expected, with 184 out of 215 polling units already uploaded. But over the next 3 hours, while the rest of the state surged forward, Ife Central's progress crawled. By 10:26 p.m., only 10 more units trickled in. By midnight, the process completely stalled out at 199 units. This reflects basic electoral game theory. When digital transmission outpaces the physical counting process, trailing political actors will deliberately create physical friction at collation centers to buy time. Under the AI TAP 3.0 framework, this localized manufactured friction is classified strictly as a behavioral deadlock. These deadlocks attempt to disrupt the narrative of the election, but their actual threat to the outcome has to be tested mathematically against the massive momentum of the statewide results. To run that test, we advance our timeline to the critical forensic juncture.
exactly 6:03 a.m. the morning after the vote. This final portal snapshot captures the statewide status at that specific minute. 3,662 results were securely submitted out of a total 3,763. Subtracting the uploaded units from the total leaves exactly 101 outstanding polling units. Those 101 polling units represent the absolute maximum amount of unknown data left in the election. Looking at the dashboard, we isolate a Delegate's confirmed tally of 519,970 votes against the vote share of his closest competitor. Applying Oyabamiji's 44.8% share gives him roughly 445,835 votes, putting him at a hard numerical deficit of approximately 74,135 votes. This sets up the ultimate mathematical hurdle. Could the votes trapped inside those 101 outstanding units possibly bridge a gap of over 74,000? To answer that, we model an absolute best-case, highly improbable scenario for the trailing candidate. We will assume that in those 101 remaining units, voter turnout wasn't the state average of 45%, but a flawless 100%. We will also assume that every single one of those voters cast their ballot for the trailing candidate, with 0 votes going to anyone else. Multiplying those 101 units by the 600 registered voters average gives a maximum yield of 60,600 votes. Even capturing every single vote in a perfect turnout, they only gain 60,600 against a deficit over 74,000. The gap cannot be closed. At 6:03 a.m., the outcome of the Osun 2026 election was mathematically insurmountable. Those behavioral deadlocks we observed in places like Ife Central, while disruptive locally, were mathematically absorbed and neutralized by the sheer velocity and volume of the statewide transmission. The AI TAP diagnostic confirms that the digital infrastructure did exactly what it was engineered to do. It gathered enough verifiable data, fast enough, to outpace any attempts at manipulation. True electoral transparency doesn't wait for a ceremonial announcement. It's the ability to independently prove a deterministic outcome using nothing but raw, openly accessible data.